Hello, and welcome to Dermcast Live. My name's Amber Blair, and I'll be your host. I'm so excited to be back here and speaking with you. It's been a crazy last year, but Dermcast is officially back and ready to roll. Today, we have the opportunity to speak with the National Psoriasis Foundation, and I have with me Dr. Stacie Bell, Chief Scientific and Medical Officer for the National Psoriasis Foundation. Additionally, I've got Jason Oberdick, who is a dermatology PA practicing at Forefront Dermatology in Pennsylvania. Thank you guys for joining us today. So today, we're excited to learn a little bit about the National Psoriasis Foundation. I've done a bit more research online and dug through your website a bit, but can you talk to me a little bit about how you got started in the beginning?
I'd be happy to, Amber. Thank you very much again for hosting us. So imagine yourself as a young woman in her early 30s who was timid to go outside, was timid to wear shorts, wear a bathing suit on those sunny days in Oregon, on those few days when they happen, and really becoming more and more isolated because she did not want to engage with her community. She was also confused about her disease. That was Beverly Foster in the late 1960s. And because of all the things she was experiencing, her husband decided, I need to do something. So he posted a classified ad in the local paper and pulled others together who were also experiencing psoriasis. And from that was the inception of the National Psoriasis Foundation. From her kitchen table to now a national organization who almost 50 years later has multifaceted pillars in education, research, and in advocacy. And it all really started from those first simple conversations. From that time, our funding for research, again, our outreach in all these different areas has grown tremendously. Our team has grown. We now have an office, our headquarters in Portland, Oregon, and also an office in Alexandria, Virginia, where we really strive to meet the goals of our strategic plan and our mission, which is to drive efforts to cure psoriatic disease and help the lives of those impacted. So with our strategic plan, which is really, like I said, fundamental to our mission, we have a goal focusing on research to lead transformational collaborative research. So not just funding or providing dollars to have research done, but really have an integral role in that research. We also have an outstanding goal of improving health outcomes. So that's on all aspects: understanding of the disease, treatment of the disease, having appropriate care, and not only for those impacted by the disease directly, but those supporting them, caring for them, living with psoriatic disease as well in all forms. And then finally, the final part of our strategic plan is to really have the resources to be able to support that. We're very fortunate to have wonderful donors, to have wonderful volunteers, and most importantly, all of our partners in the provider community. And so I'm very grateful to be here today with Jason and to talk about some of the things that the MTF has ongoing.
Jason, tell me how you got involved with the National Psoriasis Foundation.
Well, first of all, back in the day, before there was an APREP course, it used to be called the Psoriasis Summit. And I don't know if this was in, 06, 08, sometime back then. And I went to a couple of those and it was fascinating. We would go as PAs and be able to sit there and rub elbows with Alan Mentor and, Jeff Crowley, Abby Van Voorhees, all these people that are these, amazing psoriasis physicians. Christina Calistuffin was it the first one? I mean, all these people, and it was like 15 PAs to 6 doctors that were the experts in their field. So it was initially talking with them, and then I have a friend who's a physician assistant, Abby Jacobson, who we have known each other for a while, and she said, hey, why don't you get more involved with the NPF? And so I did, and I initially started by doing a couple of volunteer talks in my area, one at a grocery store, another at a library, where we educated the community about psoriatic disease. And then over that time, I started to speak for a lot of biologic companies on psoriasis. And with that, all sorts of connections and in the psoriasis world you sort of become known as this quote unquote psoriasis thought leader, which I don't know if I am one, but it definitely has opened a lot of doors. And certainly over the last few years, I've gotten more involved by lecturing at the APrep courses. And Veronica Richardson just does an amazing job of making the curricula for those. And if anybody's listening that hasn't been to an APrep course, they're phenomenal. They're as good of a 3 or 4 hours you could spend just kind of finding out everything that's the latest and greatest in psoriasis. I can't recommend them enough. And so that has been my most, that's what I've done the last few years. And then just this past year, I've started working with Sue Hayden, and we're doing the CME steering committee for the National Psoriasis Foundation. And it's me and a bunch of people that are way more educated and important in the world of dermatology, but it's fun to be part of.
That's great. Stacie, you mentioned your strategic planning. Can you talk to me a little bit about what those goals are and what your accomplishments to date have been so far?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. And Jason, to add on, you've contributed tremendously, and we're very grateful to have you involved. I think that the perspective you bring means so much to our community. Expert means a lot of different things, and so again, thank you. So in relation to our strategic plan, as I mentioned, one of our top goals is to lead transformational collaborative research, and really that's where I'll start. So over the past 50 plus years, as I've mentioned, we've had a lot of growth. One of the biggest areas has been our research funding. So to date, the National Psoriasis Foundation has funded over $20 million of research, with the bulk of that happening really in the last decade. And with that, we have had individuals come to us with their research ideas. But in this most recent strategic plan, we've really focused on identifying the unmet needs in the community and outlining what type of research we would like to see happening. Keep in mind, the National Psoriasis Foundation does focus on psoriasis, but one of the key comorbidities for psoriasis is psoriatic arthritis. Almost 30% of the individuals living with psoriasis are impacted at one point or another with psoriatic arthritis. So we also focus a lot on the rheumatology community, and our strategic plan and our goals for that really focus on both of those elements. So we have a tremendous number of key research initiatives where we're focusing a lot of monetary and resource time to at the moment, one of which is to develop a diagnostic test for psoriatic arthritis. Of all the different types of arthritis, psoriatic arthritis is typically diagnosed by elimination, and it often takes a lot of time. And currently, because there is a rheumatology shortage, that can even take longer. And what we've learned within about 6 months of an individual presenting with psoriatic arthritis, they can actually have permanent joint damage if they're not seeking treatment right away. So for us, that's one of our key initiatives. And I will say, from a physician's assistant standpoint, this is one of the key areas where this advanced provider can really play an instrumental role in treating our patient community. Because there is a rheumatology shortage, we need rheumatology providers on all levels and in all planes. And so, that's something that I hope in the community, those that may be in general practice and have an interest in this area, I hope that's something that they would really, proceed with. The other big accomplishment that I think, all of us have been battling or dealing with COVID-19 this past year on all levels. If it's not being able to go to our favorite restaurant, or maybe it's the research funding, unfortunately, many have been impacted for their livelihood and their profession as well, their employment, whether that be practices needing to downsize or staggering shifts, whether that be nonprofits like the National Psoriasis Foundation, that, there was a big fear that would be a loss in revenue. Many organizations like ourselves had to lay a number of staff members off. We've been very fortunate at the National Psoriasis Foundation to have our community really step up and support us. And one of the big accomplishments in this time frame is the formation of COVID-19 task force, composed of leaders in dermatology and rheumatology, but also in other specialties such as infectious disease or chronic care. And that task force has really led the NPF as far as being a place for not only sound information, but support, and really leaning toward evidence-based methodologies to provide recommendations that really could guide, again, not only our providers, but our patient community. That too, goes back to what I said, one of our other big accomplishments is the partnerships we have with our provider community. So we have a number of research initiatives ongoing, such as trying to define remission and a cure, both in dermatology and rheumatology. We're running our own clinical studies at this point in time. Another really important initiative that we initiated this past year was the Psoriasis Prevention Initiative. And really what that is a granting mechanism, but unlike any other that we've done in the past, both from a dollar for funding standpoint and also how it's structured. The mechanism really requires a multidisciplinary, multi-institutional approach to a research project. We're really going on the concept of, more heads are better than one, and bringing all these experts together to really advance certain key questions within the field of psoriatic disease. So that's really the research piece of it. The other big piece of it too is education. As Jason mentioned, we have educational opportunities really throughout the educational process. We're going to be instituting a new program for medical school education. So first and second year medical students can learn about psoriatic disease. We have then programs all the way up from training up through established providers, both for nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and physicians. And those programs really have been instrumental in growing our community and bringing the whole community up to speed as far as the most recent data, clinical care treatment guidelines, et cetera. We have established treatment guidelines with the American Academy of Dermatology and also the American College of Rheumatology. And that's really what has been our guiding principles for clinical care in both of those disciplines. I'd also like to mention that beyond research and education, we do so much work in advocacy. So over the past decade, one of the greatest achievements, I would say, and where there's been a great attention to detail, is having there be a federal awareness of psoriatic disease. Psoriasis in particular. Many people think when they see it, it's a skin rash, and helping the community really understand that it is a systemic disease and that systemic inflammation is really not only causing manifestation on the skin or in the joint for psoriatic arthritis, but relates to a number of comorbidities such as cardiovascular disease, obesity, mental health issues, and those things really impact the overall quality of life of patients living with psoriatic disease. So in raising that awareness on the federal level, we've done a lot of things as far as our collaboration with federal agencies such as the Food and Drug Administration, the Centers for Disease Control. About just over a decade ago now, a public health agenda for the care of psoriatic disease was established with the CDC. There's also really been a lot of effort to move beyond the federal and go into the state legislators, because many of the policies regarding access to treatment, access to care, really have been at the state level. On the federal level, it really depends what the administration is focusing on, whatever party they may be affiliated with. But the states are often focusing on caring for their patient community consistently, regardless of a shift of one party or another. So there have been a lot of efforts with our advocacy team to address things like step therapy. We've had 28 bills passed within the state system for increasing access to care. And I'm very excited to say with the NPF's efforts, this past month, we've actually had a House bill and a Senate bill that are going to go forward regarding principles to protect against step therapy on the federal level. In addition to the collaborations I mentioned, we, back in 2016, had a meeting with the FDA called the Patient-Focused Drug Development Meeting. And that was really to have patients living with psoriatic disease to come forward and tell their story. And anyone in the audience, if you've not ever been to a patient-focused drug development meeting, I would highly encourage you to partake. It is fascinating to hear the patient's perspective. You may treat patients on a daily basis, but to actually hear them open up and really talk about their experience, it's so touching, and it's just so powerful. We at the NPF, when we have new staff join, we actually have them watch the video of our patient-focused drug development meeting, so they have a really good understanding of that experience. And honestly, when I joined, I even had my teenage daughters watch it, because I think it gave them a greater understanding of what their mom was committing her time to. So, I think that, again, touching on all of those elements, there are continued things that we are doing for advocacy that also go beyond some of the things I mentioned. Again, in the world of COVID-19, we're focusing on telemedicine. We're wanting to make sure that there's access to care in that regard. We want to make sure that offices such as all those attending today, all that you're involved with, that you have that support, you have that as a possibility to treat all your patients and to keep yourself safe. We work very closely with our medical board and our scientific advisory committee to progress and forward all these things that I've done, and all of our accomplishments that I've denoted would not have happened again without all the volunteers, both patient and provider, that have worked with us.
That was quite a long list of accomplishments. That's very impressive. And I love your passion behind it. I can tell that it's going to continue to grow and flourish as we move forward. Jason, can you talk to me a little bit about, as a practicing clinical dermatology PA, what resources have you found within the National Psoriasis Foundation to be most beneficial for your practice and your patients?
Well, even though I've been doing this a long time, it seems and I've been involved with the NPF for a long time, it seems as though new benefits come along every year. I think that initially, so I've been doing this about 18 years ago, for about 18 years, and 18 years ago, I didn't really even know about the National Psoriasis Foundation at all. Then when I found out about it, I thought it was a great resource for me. And then a few years later, I realized it was a great resource for me and my patients. And so I started referring them to the website. And really, it's pretty encyclopedic in terms of how, well, I shouldn't say, the National Psoriasis Foundation is pretty encyclopedic on how they approach psoriasis, but their website in and of itself is just amazing in terms of the number of resources. You can really find out about everything from current treatments to drug studies to what's in the pipeline. But what I've been using it for my patients is they have places where patients with kids with psoriasis can go and connect to other kids with psoriasis. They have all sorts of patient advocacy programs. I've even been educated by one of my patients. If you see a woman's name named Tammy through the National Psoriasis Foundation, she does a whole bunch of things for them, and she is just a rock star. But you know how it goes. You become. I mean, we're friends now. You know, I've been with her on her psoriasis journey for 10 years or more, and you know, she has taught me things that I didn't even know were available. She'll say, you know, did you know you could get this through the NPF? And so I just try to pass that along. And I would encourage any PA that's listening to this to do it to just go to psoriasis.org for a couple of reasons. I mean, I think that you can look for any clinical data that you want, particularly in the area of COVID. The guidelines there are wonderful for that. But I also think it's important, if you are able to, within your practice, to go and become a professional member. It's a very small cost, and if your parent organization doesn't approve of it, then shame on them, because it is such a small cost for what you get out of it. And basically, if you are a professional member, you'll get listed in the provider directory. And I mean, I've had probably 100 patients come to me that found me on the National Psoriasis Foundation website over the years. So I think that that's another huge part. But just generally speaking, and I said this, I've said this before, but I think among all the disease states that we see as dermatology PAs, this is probably the best and the most well-run and most informative organization for a disease state that we have in our whole profession. And I think we should all just really take advantage of it.
I actually went on the website today and did a provider search in my area, and I was so surprised by how few providers have actually taken time to register. So my name's certainly in there, and I hope all of our viewers, as soon as they stop listening today, will go on to your website and do just the same. With any nonprofit organization, I understand that the membership involvement is so critical a component to its success. Can you talk to us a little bit about how our members can really make a difference and get involved, and where your areas of need are currently?
Yeah, I'd be happy to comment on that, Amber. Thank you. I think that really how I would love to have people involved initially is to be able to use our resources. You know, as Jason mentioned, familiarize yourself with the website. You know, we have worked very hard, and I will say, you know, our membership makes a difference, but our NPF team is gold star. I couldn't do the things I do without the support I have from my colleagues. And I think that extends out to our community. And I think that passion will show through in any area that you may be involved. And our website is the first kind of window into that world. And so I think that with that and, our membership portal, it really is not a high expense to become a member. And we continually bolster resources on our member website. I will say now, the most recent edition was actually a webinar on coding, and things like that, where you wouldn't necessarily think, okay, the National Psoriasis Foundation is going to be providing this support for me in my day-to-day work, but that's really what we strive to do. As far as being involved in other aspects, we have a number of medical programs. As Jason mentioned, our advanced provider educational opportunities are phenomenal, partly because we have such amazing faculty that we work with. We also have a specific membership category for advanced providers. And I think, over the years, that's really grown and evolved, and that will continue to happen. For our research efforts, there are a number of ways that you can volunteer for that. We're always looking for input, again, from all types of providers for our grants programs, for our initiatives, to be involved. There are volunteer opportunities. Jason mentioned he serves on our CME steering committee, where you can actually identify some of those gaps or identify some of the challenges that you have. We have several partnerships ongoing throughout the community as well, whether that be at academic institutions or with industry partners. We have a new program or newer program called the Bio Coordinator Fundamental Program. And really that's acquiring or acquisition and the processes involved in acquiring the best treatments for patients. And so that's a resource where you can go on and say, wow, I have to go through this prior authorization process. I've not had to do this before. All those resources are there on that day-to-day. And if there's an area that you're passionate about, the thing I would say is reach out to the MPF team, and we'll find ways to, incorporate you. I mentioned our advocacy efforts. We have a Capitol Hill Day every year where under different circumstances, we actually go to the Hill, you visit Senate and House offices, and you really talk about the needs of the chronic disease community. This year, we'll be doing so virtually. We'd love to have individuals participate across the country. We usually have representatives on the patient side from every state in the union. And from providers, it's been harder because sometimes traveling to Capitol Hill can be challenging. So this year, I really think it is an opportunity for individuals to actually be able to participate virtually. I think that the other thing I'd like to say is that we have a number of opportunities within communities. So whether that be our team NPF events, which may be a run or a walk or a cycling event, or maybe even it's basically bingo, but we call it a stamp out event. Stamp out being spelled PSTAMP. And so there's things like that where you can really get to know the people in your community, and that's, again, potentially patients that are living with a disease in your area, but also providers. You can share tips of knowledge and really approaches that may work within your community. So that's really, some of the areas. Jason, I'd turn it to you too. Are there other areas that you can see, knowing what you know about the MPF, that you would encourage members to become involved?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity. If you are a person who has a specialized interest in psoriasis, then it's good to sort of dive into the community, because I think that especially for PAs and NPs, this is an amazing role that we can play in dermatology. When I started, I would sometimes get some dirty looks if I was at the AAD or something like that, at the annual meeting, and I was all hepped up on, biologics. They'd sort of think, well, PAs shouldn't be the ones prescribing biologics, but that was 2004. So now I think we are, if not I think many of us prescribe much more than our supervising physicians, because our supervising physicians oftentimes don't have the time or the desire to take on some of these tough patients. And so that is a great role for us to play. And so if you've kind of been energized by the patients that you've helped and been energized by and kind of found a passion in treating psoriatic disease, the best way to sort of expand yourself both clinically and professionally and educationally is to get involved with the NPF. And it's funny, like I have no There's nothing special about me. I just sort of one day, kind of did a few things with the NPF, and now all these years later, I've done a bunch of things for the NPF, and it's been wonderful personally and career-wise for me.
It's funny how one thing can lead to another so quickly within our industry. And I'll tell you as well, my psoriatic patients are some of my favorite patients. The level of satisfaction I get from being able to really help modify their disease process is just incredible. So I agree with your passion on that completely. So let's say our members are listening right now and looking to get involved. Can you give me a quick step by step? What exactly can they do? Who's their point of contact versus a hypothetical, I want to get involved?
For sure. So the best place to start is our website, psoriasis.org. There's several pieces of information there where they can sign up for these different programs. Also, our website has links to specific things you may be interested in, whether that's Capitol Hill Day or whether it's our medical programs. We also have a general research box. And quite frankly, I welcome people to reach out to me directly. As Jason and I hopefully will comment as well, I am available for our provider community pretty much 24/7. And I'm always happy to help direct people and get them connected with the right individuals. I should also mention too that Jason mentioned about career. The MPF also serves as a conduit for a lot of other collaborations. So whether that be with the American Academy of Dermatology, whether it be with particular providers at specific institutions, there may be someone who has a real strong interest in sleep science, or for example, related to psoriatic disease. We have a number of providers that we work with. So oftentimes, even if you reach out to our general research box, or to me, I can connect people with those interests. Both Sue Hayden, my colleague, who I work so closely with on all of our medical programs, are really here for our provider community. One other point that I'd like to add too, because I know I had mentioned, as far as physician assistants and, really the shortage in rheumatology, I mentioned that, obviously we're talking about dermatology. Most of you focus on dermatology, that's what you're involved with. But it's really critical for our dermatology community to understand when I'm talking about that unmet need, because of the comments that Jason just raised, the prescribing for biologics has gone up, the management of disease. If you have that close relationship with your psoriatic disease patients in your dermatology clinic, you can help them with those elements as well. And I really think the other final thing that the MPF really has focused on the last 5 years for sure, and starting to even before that, is this collaborative care model. At some point in time, there's certain practices that have tried to actually have a dermatologist and a rheumatologist together. There's a lot of reasons why sometimes that's not feasible, whether that be a financial one or a logistical one. But that collaborative care can really happen if it's, the rheumatology practice down the street, or the psychiatric practice down the street, or the nutritionist or the physical therapist that might be in the basement of your building. It's really thinking about the holistic care of your patient. And I would really say that, you may not even see that many psoriatic disease patients, but maybe you see a few, or maybe you see some that are coming in with some of these other symptoms. And as a dermatologist, you have such an amazing opportunity to really care for all of those individuals.
Absolutely. It only takes one patient that you help to make it worth your while. Jason, are there any other take-home points that you'd really like our members to walk away from this conversation with?
Well, I always like to sort of end on the idea that this is our best chance in I think in our professional lives to just alter the course of somebody's life, some of our patients' life for the better. I mean, you can literally take somebody from a very dark place in their life to living a normal, successful, happy life. And obviously everything isn't related to the psoriatic disease, but for severe psoriatics, most everything is related to it. Their relationships, their work, just their ability to get out of bed in the morning. And I think that on those times where we're in the room, we're already a half hour behind, and the patient's going on, and you're like, boy, this is a tough case. Just tell yourself, yes, but I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to be involved in this, because, this is my chance to really make a difference. And, I think if you change your perspective like that, it'll go a long way from making you frustrated to, really being fulfilling for you. And I think that's certainly what I've found with with my practice there. And so, and the other thing I would add in closing is I think that the paying attention to the joint disease and also the comorbidities, but that has come a long way too. And every single patient asks about their joints, and if you do have trouble getting people into rheumatologists, or if it's a 6-month delay where you live or whatever, use the National Psoriasis Foundation, use any psoriasis forums as resources to get that treatment started. I think that's very important and something that we can do. And so I'm a big advocate of getting the ball rolling. And if I get a psoriatic with any joint disease whatsoever, and I'm not sure if it's psoriatic or not, I'm going to give them a treatment off the bat that I think will help their joints as well. I think that's very important that we as derm PAs and NPs, very important role that we can play, because it can be highly variable how long it's going to take to get into a rheumatologist.
Jason, I think the other thing that we think of it as a patient resource, but I think it helps the providers as well, is our Patient Navigation Center. So the National Psoriasis Foundation has established a Patient Navigation Center where patients can call in and ask questions, whether that be about their disease, where to find information on our website, even things like how to prepare for a doctor's visit, how to ask questions of your provider. And then we also have resources, that go along with that for providers. So whether it be fact sheets, strategies to take with your patients and having some of these conversations. And I think that, we've seen millions visit our Patient Navigation Center now. And it may be that they're answering questions about the newest biologic, or it may be that they're answering questions that are real time or real world right now, such as, can I use cannabis to control my skin disease, or my itching? And so we really try to work, in conjunction again with our medical board to address some of those relevant issues. Even things like telehealth, the group is there to help set up potential approaches for telehealth within your practice. And along with that, we also try to integrate all of those resources for patients and providers into our stories. So, even our e-newsletters, our print magazines, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at those, I know time is limited, but you can get through our 2-page articles pretty quickly and hopefully take some pearls away that help you in your practice.
I've spent some time in my past looking through the resources that the National Psoriasis Foundation has to offer. But I'll tell you what, listening to you guys talk today has really kind of reignited that passion and brought it back to the forefront of my mind now, as a reminder of how many resources you really have for providers and for our patients. Definitely something that I'll take back to my practice. And I'm sure all of our members that are watching feel the same way. Stacie, Jason, I can't thank you enough for taking some time today to chat with us and really dive into everything that you have to offer for our community. We appreciate it. From Dermcast Live, thank you so much for watching, everyone. We're back and we look forward to seeing you at our next interview.